Welcome, settle in, get comfortable, and let your breathing soften as we take a gentle journey into an ordinary day at a deep, rare earth metals mine, where slow elevators hum, rock walls exhale cool air, and geochemistry keeps its patient, unhurried time. Before we step into the calm steel cage and feel it begin to descend, you can support this quiet space by tapping like and subscribe. And if you want a soft stream of learning while you drift off, there is a playlist link in the description waiting for you. How sleepy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Imagine yourself standing at the mouth of the shaft just before the first descent. The morning is hushed, even if it is not morning where you are. The light at the surface is soft, filtered through a calm sky, and a quiet breeze brushes the rails with a thin sigh. The elevator cage is old in a comforting way, sturdy and well kept, its grating worn smooth by many hands. There is a low, steady hum from the hoist house, like a cat's purr stretched into a long mechanical note, constant and reassuring. You step inside the cage, its steel floor cool underfoot, and wrap your fingers lightly around the railing. The gentle rhythm begins as the operator, patient and practiced, eases the brake, and the slow vertical journey unfolds. Lamps glow along the shaft like a trail of sleepy stars, little pools of amber light that drift past one by one. The air grows cooler and a shade denser, as if it has more to say but prefers to whisper. You listen to the wind of motion in the shaft, the soft brush of air against metal, the faint clink of chain and cable, and you can feel the smooth blend of motion and stillness that makes these depths feel like an old library. The elevator is slow on purpose. Slowness is safety here, and slowness is comfort. A measured pace keeps the cables calm, keeps the cage steady, keeps hearts restful. The hoisting system is an orchestra of quiet precision, with drums and sheaves that turn without hurry, oil that glides in thin films, and brakes that hold with gentle certainty. As you drift through the earth, imagine the rock on either side, layered and veined, shaped by deep time. The rare earth elements that drew people to this place have their own quiet characters. Lanthanum and cerium, neodymium and dysprosium, praseodymium and samarium, and their cousins, along with yttrium and scandium, are not rare in the universe, only shy, preferring to hide inside particular minerals and textures. They like to gather in Bastnäsite, a carbonate fluoride, reddish when fresh and mellow brown when it weathers. In monazite, a phosphate with a satin sheen. In xenotime, a darker phosphate that holds a calm, tight lattice. And in other less famous hosts, with names that sound like lullabies. The crystals are small, often too small for the unaided eye, yet they hold stories of heat and fluid, pressure and space, patience and change. The cage slows for a moment at a station, then eases past again, continuing down. Think of the geothermal gradient, the way heat grows in the rock at depth, softened here by moving air and by water that is drawn off and guided through calm channels. Ventilation threads the mine like a quiet river. Fresh air comes down one path, stale air rises up another, and fans move it all along like slow breathing. Every gust is measured, every turn in the tunnel shaped so that the flow remains gentle and predictable. Sensors watch the air in silence, sending numbers to screens, and someone who has watched those numbers for years looks at them as if at a clock, knowing the minute changes and the steady lines. At the bottom, the doors part. The elevator sighs to rest. You step into a drift that feels timeless, a wide hallway hewn from rock, with the hush of felted tires and distant motors. The walls are supported by shotcrete, pale and slightly rough, speckled with aggregate like a night sky cut into a gentle square. Rock bolts hold the roof with the quiet confidence of anchors. Water beads along seams in tiny glassy drops. Every 50 steps or so, a lamp glows with the steady light of a quiet companion. The scent is a mixture of wet stone, faint oil, and cool dust. You imagine yourself breathing that scent, slow and easy, and the gentle rhythm continues. Boots sound soft on the damp floor, not sharp, like footsteps in a museum after hours. An ordinary day in a deep mine begins in this soft, steady way. People greet one another without hurry, nods and subtle smiles. Checklists drift out and drift in again, clipboards marked with careful lines. There is always time to confirm, time to inspect, time to match a number to a gauge. That is the culture here, a patient one, shaped by rock and distance, shaped by the awareness that every action will last in memory and material. A truck rolls by at a slow crawl, painted a restful yellow. You can imagine the driver's hands easy on the wheel, the engine purring at low speed to keep the noise a sort of gentle thunder far away. In the distance, a conveyor moves, the belt with its soft rubber dimples carrying a thin stream of broken rock. The speed is intentional, low enough to avoid scattered dust, low enough to be untroubling. This ore did not rush to form, and it will not be rushed as it is guided along. Long before any shafts or rails touch this place, hot fluids threaded through the crust with the patience of seepage. Water under the earth is not like a river at the surface. It moves through pores and micro cracks, like a sigh moving through a room, shaped by the warmth of deep rocks and the chemicals they release. In some places, the fluids were rich in carbonates and fluorine. They met rocks full of calcium and phosphorus, and tiny moments happened, moments so small they would look like a pause if you could see them. An atom of neodymium found just the right pocket in a lattice. A crystal of Bastnäsite took up one more layer. A grain of monazite added another ring of growth. Over many slow pulses, a vein formed. The gentle rhythm continues. The miners and geologists here speak of these processes with the calm of people who know that time is a wide ocean. They talk about ion size and charge not to show off, but the way a gardener mentions loam and light, the way a librarian brushes a book's spine. The lanthanide contraction is one of those quiet truths. As you move along the series from lanthanum to lutetium, the ions grow a little smaller, and that smallness decides where they prefer to rest. Slight changes in radius make for gentle preferences. A lattice liked here, a lattice declined there. It is chemistry that feels like fine tailoring, where the thread counts and the weave tells you how the fabric drapes. In monazite, the REE ions slip into spaces alongside phosphorus and oxygen. In Bastnäsite, they share an arrangement with carbonates and fluorine, the way guests gather in a corner of a room where they feel at ease, talking in low voices. As you walk, the map in your hand is quiet with lines and symbols. Each line is a corridor, each symbol a note, each shaded patch an ore body outlined through many separate observations that connect like beads on a thread. Diamond drills once corded through this area far above, sending down slender pipes to taste the rock, core by careful core. Those cores now lie in trays like long books, their pages written in bands and patches, with small notes on sticky flags. A geologist bent over them used a hand lens here, a pencil tick there, and then a soft-spoken meeting happened around a table where tea cooled. Patience is a tool like any other tool. You can almost hear the pencils as they scratched the logs, the way the plastic latches clicked closed. Later, an electron microprobe in a cool room with a sound like a distant refrigerator tracked the tiny lights and positions of elements, a quiet stargazing done at a scale our eyes cannot see. The ordinary day moves forward. A driller sets a bit, but we are not here for roaring sound, so the scene smooths into a slow montage. The drill turns with a buffered hum, water trickles, a ring of small wet cuttings gathers like a tidy wreath. The machine pauses often. Pauses matter. They allow the cuttings to clear, the bit to cool, and the hands operating it to settle into an even pattern. A sample bag receives little portions of the day's work. Each bag is labelled, sealed, and placed in a crate that will later travel upward like messages in a bottle. At the face, rock saws and pickups rest on stands, their handles grippy and warm to touch. When the cutting starts, it happens in a soft frame. You imagine ear protection as a kind of warm scarf for the senses. You imagine the world turning down its volume knob, and the process becomes another measured rhythm added to the day. Beyond the face, the mind breathes. Air in, air out. Temperature brackets that feel comfortable with protective clothing and the glow of effort. Water management continues like choreography. Little trenches guide it, sumps gather it, pumps move it, filters cradle it, and tests confirm it. Clarity is watched, pH is checked, and when adjustments are made, they are made in small steps. In a corner of the underground workshop, racks hold wrenches and sockets arranged by size, lines of orderly shapes that could be immobile from a child's dream of tools. Lubrication schedules hang on clipboards, and next to each schedule, a pen marks today's date. The hoist receives attention as a beloved instrument does. A hand on the motor casing to feel the temperature, a gaze on the brake drum to see the satin finish, a cloth wiping dust from a sensor that records speed. Every few hours, you find yourself near the shaft again, just to listen to the elevator story. Going down, going up, it moves with the same gentle character, and the steel cable holds its quiet arc like a single long string on a harp. The operator and the cage keep time throughout the day, and shift after shift. They teach patience to everyone they carry. Within the cage, conversation's soft. A person describes a detail of geology the way someone else might talk about the weather, lightly and with small gestures. Another person mentions a trial of a new sensor that will measure humidity changes in a drift 2 levels lower. Over months, the numbers settle into a pattern that will help set the speed of a fan by 1 gentle notch. Nothing here is sudden. The gentle rhythm continues. At the processing plant, the ore is introduced with the same deliberate care. It flows through a jaw crusher that does not rush, a steady bite that reduces blocks to pieces. The conveyors whisper, and magnets hum quietly as they lift stray bits of steel from the stream. Further along, mills roll slowly, heavy and calm, turning metal and stone against one another to release small grains from the enclosing matrix. The important minerals are not dramatic in their liberation. They are simply themselves, a glint of Bastnäsite under a microscope, a small particle among many. Flotation cells bubble with modest froth. The air is adjusted in soft increments, the reagent dosing measured as if preparing herbal tea. Collectors drift in and out, pH nudges up or down, and the surface texture of grains decides which bubbles carry which pieces to which side. The froth gathers, is skimmed, is thickened, and the gentle rhythm continues. Beyond the physical concentration, chemistry takes over with unhurried steps. Leaching begins, perhaps with a solution that has been warmed gently and stirred as if to coax rather than force. A reagent atlas could fit on a single kindly page here. The liquid finds certain bonds and loosens them, persuading ions into the stream. The pregnant solution is a soft, clear color, a sign that the pieces are on the move. Solvent extraction columns stand like a row of quiet trees. An organic phase and an aqueous phase slip past each other in alternating layers, not mixing, but exchanging. The elements move selectively, as if choosing seats in a large silent theatre according to preference, following laws that were learned by long observation. A gentle difference in acidity or an extractant's shape guides who sits where. Each stage is a small nudge, and many small nudges add up to separation without drama. Eventually, there is precipitation, a white or pale powder gathering in calm tanks, sometimes as oxalates that will later be coaxed with warmth and time into oxides. On another bench, glassware rests as if in meditation. A pH meter displays a slow digit by digit change. A titration flows drop by drop, a colour shift that is more like a deep breath than a flipping switch. The geochemists speak of complexation and activity coefficients as if talking about the way tea diffuses through hot water, the way salt melts into soup. Atoms are not small people, but they have preferences that, once known, feel familiar. Carbonate likes to hold hands with rare earths in simple, sturdy ways under some conditions. Fluoride secures them in other conditions. Phosphates shape the most durable of their homes, especially when the structure leaves space just the right size. All of this moves so slowly in nature that even a day in the laboratory, even a day in the plant, feels brisk by comparison. The patient geochemistry of ore deposits spreads across millions of years. In that time frame, a minute is a sigh, and a human life is a calm blink. Imagine yourself pausing to rest against a comfortable bench, sipping water that tastes faintly like the cold stone around you. You let your gaze soften on a wall map of the mine system. Red lines for active headings, blue for ventilation pathways, green for service lines. The symbols are like a language you can understand without thinking. Arrows show airflow direction, and numbers show pressures that are neither high nor low, just balanced. The fans that maintain this balance are placed like sleeping giants, quiet and consistent, housed behind grates that hum in a gentle monotone. Somewhere up above, a weather station notes the day's pressure and temperature. Those numbers whisper to the ventilation controls, and the change inside is gradual, like shifting a blanket a little higher over a shoulder. Here, even the tools of measurement are patient. In the geochemistry lab, a mass spectrometer hums the way a city at dawn hums, its vacuum pumps purring, its detectors dozing and waking and dozing again as a sample passes through. Isotopes reveal ratios quietly. The ages of minerals emerge in the slow crossing of lines on a plot, a Concordia curve that looks serene. Uranium and thorium in monazite decay into lead at rates so slow that measuring them feels like counting raindrops falling from a far cloud into a calm lake over centuries. Samarium becomes neodymium, and their proportions give you a timeline that stretches like a ribbon through igneous histories. With these timelines, the mine's story extends beyond the shifts, beyond the year, even beyond the mine's life, into the Earth's long biography written in a subtle script. You wander a little farther along the drift to a place where a crosscut opens to the side. The wall here shows a banded texture. Light grey granite-like rock meets a more exotic patch where alkaline magmas once spoke to the crust. Perhaps a whisper of a carbonatite nearby in the district, or a memory of a pegmatite that delivered more adventurous chemistry into a quiet place. Pegmatites are like the final lines of a poem that the magma writes, carrying rare ingredients in a small space, letting them settle into larger crystals because there is time and room. Alkaline complexes and carbonatites form even more unusual scenes, with rare earths joining in stealth. In some parts of the world, lateritic weathering, slow and steady in warm rains, converts rocks into clays that hold rare earth ions on their surfaces like a gentle embrace. In those places, extraction is like a quiet exchange, washing the clays with solutions that softly persuade ions to flow away, leaving the clay structure undisturbed. That too belongs to the patient geochemistry of the landscape. An ordinary day means maintenance as an art of kindness. A mechanic wipes a film of oil from a valve stem and relubricates it with a measured squeeze. No excess, no rush. A bolt is torqued to a number that has been chosen through calm experience. A checklist receives a neat tick, and then a second set of eyes confirms it with the same neatness. You find yourself soothed by these sequences because they are about care. They are not glamorous. They are not abrupt. They are simply consistent. In a world that sometimes moves quickly on the surface, there is relief in a place that moves with deliberation beneath it. The gentle rhythm continues. Lunch arrives as a simple pause. A break room underground feels like a small cabin in a quiet forest. Mugs rest on a table, scarred by many careful tools, and sandwiches are unwrapped slowly. People talk about small details. Someone mentions a line in a field notebook where a vein changed colour subtly, moving from honey to straw. Another person mentions a ventilation tweak that made a corridor feel calmer. There is laughter, but it is soft. There are stories, but they are focused on the craft, the way a baker talks about dough. When lunch ends, the wrappers fold neatly into a bin, and hands are wiped, gloves flexed back on, lamps clicked into a steady glow, and the day resumes its tranquil pace. In a side office, computer monitors display gentle graphs. The line that tracks conveyor speed is flat, with mild terraces where planned pauses occur. The line that tracks mill power is steady, like a landscape from a high window. Another screen displays a map of microseismic activity, little symbols marking minor sounds in the rock as it gently adjusts to the shape of the tunnels. Data points appear at a pace you can follow with your breathing. C1, exhale. See the next, inhale. The people who watch these screens have cultivated a soft sort of vigilance, alert without urgency, resting and attending at once. They know that rock is quiet most of the time, and when it changes its quiet, your attention should be steady rather than sharp. Imagine, now, a day in the mine when weather at the surface is rainy, and yet far below, the rain is an idea, not a sensation. The shafts have their own climate, moderated by airflow and the thermal mass of the earth. The rock around you has been at almost the same temperature for a very long time. If the air above is crisp, the mine seems warm. If the air above is hot, the mine seems cool. This constancy has its own comfort. The gentle rhythm continues. Around the midpoint of the shift, people's movements slow even further. Tasks that required physical steadiness earlier now give way to tasks requiring mental steadiness. Samples collected in the morning are logged. Labels are printed and placed in a way that would make a librarian smile. Splitters divide samples into equal parts, and the slivers of rock fall into trays in neat crescent-shaped piles. The sound of rocks in trays is one of the mine's loveliest quiet sounds, a soft, cascading whisper followed by stillness. When someone scribes a code on a bag, the marker glides without squeak, because this is a place that avoids jagged edges, even in sound. What time is it for you at this exact moment? You may feel your shoulders sink a little now, your breathing a little slower, as we explore more of the patient chemistry in these rocks. Imagine a Bastnäsite grain under a microscope, pale and warm in cross-polarized light. Its relief modest, its edges smoothing into neighboring quartz and feldspar. Around it, fractures radiate like the fine cracks in old porcelain. In some, late fluids once moved, bringing a slightly different mixture of ions, replacing this with that, etching here, filling there, a sort of quiet editing. Textures like this speak of episodes, not singular events. Monazite grains in metamorphic rocks record multiple growth zones, each laid down as conditions changed in delicate increments. An inclusion formed, then later a rim grew around it. Then later still a smaller overgrowth sealed the whole. Each zone holds a slightly different isotopic story, and by reading them, you discover that time in the crust is not just deep, but layered like sleep. There are cycles within cycles, and pauses within movements. In places where rare earths accumulate in weathered clays, the story is a surface one, but still slow. Rain falls in patient patterns, and the acids of the soil, mild and natural, release ions a bit at a time. They drift downward, catch on clay sheets, stick to edges and corners with quiet force. That adsorption is a handshake that can be undone kindly later by a solution gently adjusted. Farmers know the taste of soil, its feel when pinched between fingers. Geochemists know it through diagrams with smooth gradients, through measurements of conductivity and exchange capacity. Both approaches share the same affection for gradual change. The long history of the mine district itself might include a great intrusive event, when hot magmas rose in their own time, cooled in their own time, and brought new chemistry into rocks that had their own older stories. Alkaline magmas, rich in sodium and potassium and unusual elements, sometimes came with carbonatites, those special magmas that carry dissolved carbonates and can solidify into rocks that look sweet and strange. When they solidify, they can concentrate elements like rare earths, niobium and fluorine. Later, landscapes weathered these rocks into soils that kept the rare earths near the surface, or fluid circulation gathered them into veins. Each setting is a room in the same house, each with a different texture and scent, yet connected by a quiet hallway called time. The gentle rhythm continues as the afternoon unfolds. The cage makes another visit, and as it moves, the operator leans into the familiar. At the station, the gate rolls open with a soft, well-oiled clatter. A cluster of people step in, a cluster step out. The flows like tides. The pause and motion soothe. You glance at a nearby board with the plan for the week. Each task sits in its row. Inspect pump, collect sample, install bolts, survey drift, check gauge, calibrate sensor. The tasks are small on the page, but each one is a knot in the net that holds the day, the week, the mine, the community around it. On the survey team station, a laser level rests like a tiny lighthouse, casting a thin beam along the line of sight. The beam touches a reflective card, returns, and the instrument hums softly in contentment. Coordinates are updated, and the tunnel is mapped with millimeter calm. In a separate spot, an acoustic monitor listens to the rock. Short bursts of sound travel through the walls and return, and the data is a set of curves that curl like sleeping cats, neat and self-contained. Each curve says the ground is still. That is what you want to hear most days, that the world around you is resting. Back at the plant, a row of thickening tanks rotates slowly, their rakes drawing arcs in the quiet slurry. The minerals settle in their own time. The overflow is clear and returns to a circuit where it begins another lap. Water is precious everywhere. Here, the circuits are like garden irrigation patterns, wisely looping in wide circles, touching each bed at a pace that keeps the leaves dewy. Filters press the concentrates. Plates come together and then drift apart. Cakes lift away, and everything moves like an afternoon of gentle chores. The air smells faintly of limestone and solvent, a mix that is surprisingly mild when everything is kept where it belongs. On a calm shelf in a storeroom, jars hold standards and reagents. Labels are crisp. Caps are tightened to just the right snugness, not too tight, not too loose. A lab notebook lies open with tidy handwriting, numbers that line up, letters that lean the same way. There is comfort in legible records. They are letters written to the future, to a person who will try to remember what was done, quietly thanking the writer for their care. In the corner, a computer records instrument logs, and the blinking light is slow, almost sleepy. This is not a place of alarm, but of consistency. Meanwhile, the outside world continues, but underground it is always a little the same. The second half of the day has the same architecture as the first. You notice the repetition of the miner's steps, the repetition of the pipe drip, the repetition of the cage's hum, the repetition of the conveyor's whisper. Sleep is attracted to repetition, and so is safety. In repetition, you can refine. In repetition, you can relax. The gentle rhythm continues. There is time now, mid-afternoon, or another hour in another place, to honor the long path that leads from ore to the devices and systems these elements help build. The magnets in wind turbines and in electric motors owe their strength to rare earths like neodymium and dysprosium. A small amount of dysprosium raises the magnet's ability to hold together under heat. This detail matters in a calm, physical way. It means a motor can hum along for years, doing the same thing from morning to night without distress. In fiber optics, erbium sits in a glass lattice and amplifies light quietly, letting signals go farther without raising their voices. In medical settings, gadolinium contributes to contrasts that are read by trained eyes in quiet rooms. The chain from rock to instrument is long and carefully managed, and each link has its own rhythm. The mines people do not rush this chain. When a new batch of concentrate is produced, it is tested in small increments. The grain size is checked. The chemical composition is checked. The moisture content is checked. If something is out of tune, a gentle adjustment is made at a specific valve or a reagent feed. Yield and purity improve by small steps. There is satisfaction in those steps, in knowing that progress can be both real and calm. Off to the side, a thick door opens to a survey vault. Inside, old mine plans hang like quiet tapestries. Some are older than anyone in the room, yet their lines still speak. Spiral ramps drawn in careful curves, stops marked with numbers like lullabies. The shafts traced in pencil so firm and light, you can almost hear the sound of graphite. The paper smells faintly of age, and handling it is done with clean hands. Old maps and new data live together easily here. When the planners speak about the next month, they speak of the ore body with respect. The rock's strength is a constant. The ore grade is a constant. The plan draws a path that meets those constants with humility. The mine is not forced. It is persuaded gently. In another room, the core shed, the day's samples are stacked in labelled trays. A rolling ladder leans against a shelf, its wheels softly rubbered. A person climbs partway and selects a tray with a careful tilt, bringing it to a table at a comfortable height. They write a note about a texture that looks like pressure shadows around a grain. They write a note about a change in mineral assemblage over a few centimeters. The notes will later inform where to drive a new drift, where to add a crosscut, where to pause and consider again. Observations layer like the wall of a bird's nest, each twig placed just so, together forming something that holds. The gentle rhythm continues as the shift edges toward its close. At the far end of the workings, a small crew installs a new row of bolts. The drill leans gently into the rock, pauses, leans again, and then a bolt slides in, resin setting at a tempo that feels like counting to 10. The plate meets the roof. The nut turns by a wrench with a slight tug and then stops right at the mark. It is like tuning a string on an instrument until it sings the note you expect, then not tightening further. When they finish a set, they move backward with the same calm steps. Above ground, the sky may be changing colour. Below ground, clocks mark the time, reminding everyone when to gather near the cage. Down in the drift, you turn and begin the quiet walk back, letting your lamp point just ahead, letting the rocks on either side slip by like gentle clouds. You see again the small graffiti of the mine, a chalk arrow that will vanish with the next washdown, a smiley face drawn near the ventilation door, initials tucked near a junction box. A place becomes home by little marks like these, however temporary. They are soft signatures. At the shaft station, the cage arrives with its friendly squeak of wheels and a sigh as it settles. The operator nods, the door slides open, and you step in. The floor is familiar now, the railings smooth in the same places, the corners with their own shadows. People stand with relaxed shoulders. Someone removes a glove to scratch an eyebrow and then replaces it. Someone else leans back and watches the ceiling of the cage as if it were a cloud. The gate slides closed, and then motion comes. You rise with the elevator, the same slow pace, the same small arcs of cable. Lamps pass in reverse, like stars in a quiet animation. Your ears find a soft pop as the pressure changes. You notice your breath again and let it deepen. The ride up is a chance to let ideas settle. Think again of the patience of geochemistry. In the belly of a magma chamber, elements find their places in crystals as the melt cools. As the remaining melt becomes enriched in certain components, odd and interesting minerals form. That journey from a wide ocean of molten rock to a late pocket of specialized fluid already invites calm. Then think of metamorphism, where heat and pressure from mountain building reweave the mineral fabric of rock over spans of time that exceed any schedule. A monazite grain that formed in an igneous rock might dissolve a little and reprecipitate differently in a metamorphic fluid, recording the event in its new rim, as if it recorded a line of a song it heard in another room and carried back with it. Then think of weathering, which is the rain's long poem written into the upper skin of the earth. Each of these steps is unhurried. They do not compete with one another. They are separate movements in a symphony that plays beyond lifetimes. Your mind might drift now as the cage climbs. It might drift to the image of a conveyor belt at twilight, still moving a small trickle of ore, lights along its length like little lanterns. It might drift to the lab, to the quiet shapeliness of glass, to a beaker's meniscus and the way it curves. It might drift to the storeroom where new hard hats rest nested in a stack, each with a small tag, or to a borehole trace on a map like a gentle dash, pointing to possibility. These are small things, and small things are where calm thrives. The gentle rhythm continues. When the cage reaches the surface, the doors open to a breath of fresh air that you feel without fanfare. The sky is wide and perhaps blue, or perhaps it is night with a soft scatter of city glow along the horizon. Either way, the space feels generous. You step out and stand for a moment, letting the change in air and light register. The hoist house hum is behind you now, and the day's sounds soften into a background that seems like silence. Work boots ease on gravel, and a truck rolls past with a low tone that is not a bother. People walk with their gear, and conversations are small and friendly. The day has been full, but its fullness was of measured motions, and your mind can rest in that. Even after the shift, patient geochemistry continues, as it always does. Deep in the earth, fissures fill with a little water, and that water sits and waits, or moves a millimeter in an hour. Elements trade places in a lattice that they have grown used to over eons. At the tailings pond, water clarifies as fine particles settle with the help of flocculants that work gently, gathering small pieces into slightly larger pieces so that gravity can do what it does with no strain. On a slope, a small sapling grows, its roots sliding into soil once shaped by mining, now fostered into new life. Time and care move together without pushing one another. You might walk across the yard to a quiet viewing point where you can see part of the head frame, simple and geometric against the sky. It stands like a bookmark in the story of the mine, marking the spot where people enter and leave the underworld every day. Sparrows weave through its lattices in little arcs, and the wind finds the spaces between beams and makes a soft tone. In the distance, a sign invites workers to pause for a moment, to remember the day, to be present. Even that is done without urgency. Presence here is not a spike, but a platform, something to lie down upon rather than stand atop. Inside an office, the evening shift meets in a room where the lights are warm and not too bright. A planner speaks about tomorrow's targets, emphasizing the same words that carry the mine: careful, steady, simple. Another person speaks about a new idea for reducing reagent consumption, a tweak that involves a different sequencing of pumps and a small change in pH. The suggestion is met with thoughtful nods. Notes are made. It will be trialled in an hour window when feed is consistent, and the output will be assessed with a calm eye. If it works, it will be gently folded into the routine. If it does not, it will be noted, and the routine will go on untroubled. This is what it means to be guided by patience. Far away, in a university lab or a research centre, a scientist finishes a paper about rare earth partitioning between melt and crystal. The graphs are tidy, the error bars small, the fonts chosen for legibility. The work will be read by people who have spent time underground and by people who have not. It will join the quiet conversation that science has been having across centuries, where letters become journals, journals become archives, archives become the place new ideas consult when they need calm. The scientist turns off the light and walks home, thinking about ionic radii and the way atomic orbitals shape preferences, and then about dinner, and then about sleep. There is a grace in imagining all of these motions at once: the slow elevator, the patient fluids in rocks, the steady wheels of the plant, the even lines of notes, the measured breaths of the people who work here. They belong together the way pages belong together in a book. Turn one page, turn another, and the story advances without hurry. the gentle rhythm continues. As our journey settles toward its close, you might feel the day stretch out behind you like a calm path. You have walked past lamps and maps, past bolts and drills, past mineral names that sound like incantations, but are actually the most practical words in the world for the people who use them. You have felt the cage floor underfoot and the soft change in air as you rise and fall. You have listened to the conveyors, to the fans, to the chorus of quiet machines. You have spent time with patient geochemistry, and it has spent time with you, lending you its slow heartbeat. If you are drifting now, let your attention soften even more. Let the details blur into a watercolor. The shaft is a vertical river with glints of light. The drifts are gentle hallways. The ore is a soft mosaic of colors and grains. The lab is an island of glass and numbers. The plant is a landscape of slow currents. All these images can rest together behind your closed eyes, lined up like stones in a garden. The wind, the hum, the footfall, the low voices, they can blur into a single continuous sound, like a far ocean. You are safe here. Nothing hurried approaches. Time moves past like a cloud. You can let go. Imagine one more descent and one more ascent in perfect calm. Imagine the cage stopping at a station and then continuing. Imagine a hand on a lever. Imagine a pen making a single neat note. Imagine a bead of water rolling down a bolt. Imagine a grain of Bastnäsite catching light at a particular angle. Imagine a mass spectrometer's green light, steady and unblinking. Imagine a fan turning and the fan's reflection on a smooth painted wall. Imagine the gentle rhythm continuing. As you rest in this feeling, I wish you quiet and comfort. Thank you for spending this ordinary day in the deep with me, where slow elevators and patient geochemistry guide the hours. If this brought you ease, a like and a subscribe help us keep releasing these calm explorations this often, and the playlist in the description is always there to hold you as you drift. May your night be untroubled, your dreams be spacious, and your breathing be slow. Sleep well,